So let's break down those movements that we saw in today's trading day. Craig Pheiffer, Sasfin Wealth's Chief Investment Strategist, joining us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Craig, and welcome to the Money Desk. Let's begin with the overall markets that we saw today. I did say that it was green across most of the board, strong showing from the financials as well as the resources. What would you say were some of the biggest contributors to today's movements?
Well, I think a little bit of a catch-up from the US on Friday. We closed down about 0.3%, but the US market had quite a storming day on Friday. So we're doing a little bit of a catch-up there. The US market's opening positive again. I think as we speak, they're up about 0.8%. So that's just given us a bit of a lift today. As you said, it's green across the board. Quite a prestigious day, hitting 80,000 on the all-share index. We were there to talk about it, a new all-time high on the market.
Now, we've been waiting for that 80,000 for a while now. It teeters around that point and then drops, and finally we are there. Let's move over to the local unit now, Craig. It's remained rather weak against the US dollar. When I caught up with you a little bit earlier on, it was trading at around 17.15 against the US dollar, now sitting at around 17.20, paired with the price of Brent, which is moving ever so close to $90 a barrel. This doesn't bode well for net importers of fuel like South Africa.
No, that ultimately impacts the trade balance, which then causes our current account balance to deteriorate. And that's one of the pillars behind the currency. A weaker current account, and we're tending towards more of a deficit again after a period of having a surplus. So that adds a little bit of weakness to the currency. If you look at the dollar itself, that's also been a bit on the back foot the last couple of days. So the weakness in the rand is all of its own making, and it's probably the usual factors, along with oil ticking up, but just that perpetual story of load shedding and what that does to economic activity, and ultimately, that also feeds through into a weaker currency. You need a strong, growing economy to attract capital and to support the rand, and any sign that the economy is slipping up, I think, impacts the currency.
Yeah, and we are seeing that very well indeed. Some company updates, not much in the form of company news, but we did see Cashbuild release a trading update today. It's always a good showing of the health of the consumer in terms of how they are trading. What did you make of the release that they put out on Sense today?
Yes, I think, largely negative. If you look at the revenue, this was the second quarter that they were reporting on. So gives you an idea of the first half of their trading year, and it was revenues that they were reporting on. So we'll get actual earnings a bit later, and which will talk to profitability. But revenue was down in the second quarter about 5% on a half-year basis. It was down about 4%. So definitely softness in that space. If one looks at the selling inflation that they have there of 4.5%. Which you can, view the revenue against, that tells you that, the actual sales have been softer. And they did tell us that the number of transactions through the tills was also down about 7% year on year. So one could read through, as you said, to economic activity. The company did, fairly well during those times of COVID when, people were looking to refurbish their homes and were stuck at home. And looked for a bit more of DIY and actually just something to do. But those times have passed. Our economy is softening. And yes, you're seeing it in these Cashbuild numbers.
Yeah, and then finally, we didn't get to reflect on this on Friday, but African Bank, a momentous moment for them, declaring a dividend, quite a nice one at that. Your thoughts on the prospects for the business, its relisting on the JSE, but also the South African Reserve Bank perhaps shedding its stake in the bank?
I think Lesetja Kganyago was secretly jumping up and down in his chambers there at the prospect of a 20 cents per share dividend. Yes, I mean, the Reserve Bank's a 50% shareholder. You've got the Government Employees Pension Fund, which owns 25% of the company. And then our big banks own around 25% of it as well. They've largely done their job in helping bail out the business. It's getting on its own 2 feet again, having bought up Grindrod Bank, Ubank. It's become profitable enough that it can start paying dividends. So that's a very positive sign, and they do want to list it in 2025. And I think when that day comes, those banks and the GEPF, which have supported it, will be very grateful for their capital back, and also grateful that they've managed to save an institution that warrants saving, and they'll say a job well done.
No, absolutely, job well done to them indeed. Craig Pheiffer, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. That is the Chief Investment Strategist at Sasfin Wealth, joining us to wrap up the markets day that was. And that's